Hi, Internet. It's Emily SW,
Sam.
and we are here with the celebratory Halloween edition of the podcast. So, we chose today's story because Stephen King hailed it as maybe the best horror story in the English language, which I wouldn't go that far. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't call it the best by any means.
Have you ever read Stephen King?
The only thing I've read by Stephen King is Stephen King on Writing, which is a book of essays that he wrote, funnily enough, which I enjoyed. And I really liked his writing style in those. I just haven't picked up anything. My mom keeps telling me to read The Shining because it's one of her favorite books. Have you?
Yes. I read that amusement park one earlier this year.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. That feels like 50 years ago.
You're right. I'm gonna have to say, yes, I agree that he's got a nice writing style. But how do I put this? His pacing and plot were really bad.
Hmm. I mean, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses, right?
Um, I mean, the plot is a big one though.
Especially because a lot of his books are thick, like humongo.
Oh, this one, it wasn't that long. It was also one of his newer ones, which also probably makes a difference. I've heard that his newer ones aren't as good as his like classic ones.
Yeah, I've heard that after he stopped doing cocaine, the books kind of went downhill.
I guess that was the secret, right? But I've also been told that he's not good at endings just in general. And this
Mm,
book definitely did not have a good ending. And it wasn't that it didn't like wrap everything up. It wasn't like there were huge plot holes. We spent the entire book kind of living this slice of life um, teenage summer job in the amusement park, which for also
mhm.
self-insert. The character was a self-insert.
Ugh.
He was telling us the story of his summer working at the amusement park as an older man, and he was also a professional writer.
Yeah, that's a little on the nose. A little too much.
Um, And then all of a sudden, in the last couple chapters, it's like, oh, there's a murder plot now.
I
Literally,
mean,
for like the last handful of chapters, he didn't. It's not like he spent the entire. Like, it came up a couple times because there was, this rumor about someone haunting the dark ride. Someone was found dead on the ghost train.
mhm.
So it kind of like was mentioned here and there, but then at the end, he's like, I know the answer to the mystery. Here was the really egregious part. The villain, as he's like looking at these like the main character, is looking at these old photographs and he has his aha moment, which was very weak. I will say that. The villain calls him, just like psychically, I guess. He's like, I know that you know that I did it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the big reveal.
That's wah wah. Uh, that's the only way I
Just
could think
like,
to.
what? First of
Yeah,
all, it's not like I was invested in the mystery because we like barely talked about it through most of the story, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, here I'm the villain now, huh?
yeah, that's really bizarre.
So that's my experience with Stephen King.
Yeah, I've it's been on my list for a long time. Like I really want to read the classics like Carrie, The Shining. I have been told that Pet Cemetery is boring and not to bother, but I've also been told that it's the scariest book people have ever read. So I'm not sure about that one. I might try to chip my way through it, but that's one of the big honkin' chonkers, and I also know it's gonna make me mad.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't know if that many pages is worth the rage. We'll see. We'll see.
The story that we read for this pod though is not Stephen King.
The story we read is The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. So Stephen King said it was maybe the best horror story in the English language. H.P. Lovecraft also liked the story, which makes sense. It has a bit of a Lovecraftian bent to it. But something that I find interesting about Arthur Machen is that so he had an interest in the occult, which I think comes through, and was friends with Arthur Edward Waite. For anyone who doesn't know, was the co-creator of the Rider-Waite tarot deck, which is one of the most well-known, influential tarot decks. Let me rephrase that. The Rider-Waite tarot deck is basically what modern tarot readers reference a lot of the time. Like, the imagery and the symbolism specifically is what's referenced usually today, which I just thought that was an interesting.
I was gonna say, I know I've heard that name before.
Yeah, yeah, Rider-Waite tarot is essentially what modern tarot is based on,
Hmm.
to at least some degree.
This story did scandalize audiences when it was first published.
Yeah, I there's a little quote about it that, oh, it's too decadent and sexual. Decadent, maybe. Sexual is alluded to.
Because I was telling you earlier, I listened to an audiobook version and I had to
Mhm.
start it over because I missed the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because the bulk of the story was just men talking, men reading, men talking again,
Yeah,
men reading.
it was definitely that. Having recently started a new job, my brain has been shot. Reading this was a delightful little, like, escape for me. I was just reading it on my phone, and it was nice because it's a novella, but it's broken up into parts. So it was nice because the parts were short enough that I could get through them relatively quickly, but it gave me a good stopping point, and I enjoyed. I mean, it was a little, shall we say, dull. It was. I appreciated that in this moment of my life.
That's fair.
And I enjoyed the way, like, I did enjoy the descriptions of things. I thought there were some really lush descriptions, or decadent, as they said. And I really liked that it was a couple different threads that all got tied together, which sometimes aggravates me. But the thing I really liked about it is that in each part, even if you were introduced to a completely new character, you could pick up on the little tidbits, the little clues that linked them, which kept me going. And I was intrigued and I was like, "Okay, how are all these different people gonna come together? How is this part of the story gonna, like, relating?" So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I didn't find it horrifying at all. I thought it was fun.
You know why? Really, the only chapter that's told the action is happening in the present is chapter 1,
Yes.
where there's two men talking, but they're talking about this experiment that the one doctor wants to do, and he's saying that his operation will allow people to see beyond the veil into the spiritual world.
Yes.
But you think that they do this on themselves? You think the doctor does this on the other man?
No, no, of course not.
No. And when the one man who it was, what were the names?
I will be honest, all the names were bleeding together for me. That is the
Um,
thing that, did confuse me.
well,
Raymond,
I'm
it's
oh,
Raymond and
I knew it was
Clark.
an R. Yeah, well, because they're talking about who they're going to do this experiment to. The experiment, spoiler alert, is a lobotomy.
Mhm.
And they're going to do this on a woman, and from then on, they deserved every bad thing that happened to them. The rest of this story is a women's revenge story.
Yes, I Raymond was the doctor, Clark was the witness. Yeah, I have the exact quote. "As you know, I rescued Mary from the gutter and from almost certain starvation when she was a child. I think her life is mine to use as I see fit." And that is in response to Clark saying, "It's a great responsibility. Something might go wrong. You would be a miserable man for the rest of your days." And Raymond, the doctor, is like, "Nah." Yeah, I agree. I also think calling her Mary was a little on the nose. So Mary gets this lobotomy, essentially, and then suffers this horrible terror. That is the last we see of Mary in the beginning. She's gone mad, and they say she's seen the great god Pan. That's where the title comes from. That's the whole point.
And
Uh,
they're also equating Pan with the devil here.
yeah, and in Greek mythology, is Pan is the god of the wild. So it like, and he's the companion of nymphs. Like if you've seen the Disney, what is it, Fantasia?
Mm-hmm.
Pan's in that. Um, he's a satyr or a faun. Really not who I would pick to relate to the devil, but and he's also I think the reason Pan was used in the story is because that era of England specifically and, like, the occult, people who are interested in the occult, that's sort of where modern sort of Wicca kind of sprung up from. So, basically, Mary sees the devil, goes mad, and then we get the whole rest of the story with the mystery and all this stuff.
Which is told in mostly flashback.
Mostly flashback and men
Yep.
talking to each other and men thinking about the conversations they had with each other.
And reading things that they've written previously.
Yeah. Uh, it is a little silly. This story see, and that's part of it. The story is a little silly. There's also this is of the times. I fully recognize that. Arthur Machen loves the word queer. Every single paragraph in this story, like every paragraph, he describes something as queer. And it's amusing. Knowing full well he just means odd or strange or whatever in
Yeah.
the vernacular of the time. For me, as a modern queer, I find it amusing. So it I did
Yeah, because that word's been reclaimed. So
yes.
instead of meaning odd and strange,
Yeah, it's just outside normal.
whatever
Um,
that means.
whatever that means, yeah, right. But so we find out that Mary had this lobotomy and then was essentially impregnated by the devil, the great god Pan, immaculately through her mind. It reminded me of 2 things. 1, Outlast the game, and 2, Percy Jackson, because in Percy Jackson, long story short, the kids in Percy Jackson are children of Greek gods and human beings. But the gods and goddesses who were virgins could still have kids, but instead of doing it the sex way, they just, like, were born the mind like, through mind thought something or other, I don't know. In the game do you know what I'm talking about, the Outlast reference I'm making?
No, because I've only seen people. I should say this. I've only seen Dan Howell play through the first few minutes of it. He is not particularly good with horror games.
Yes.
He did not play it for very long, and he never picked it up again, at least on video.
Okay. So, I've never played Outlast myself, but I have watched many people play the game, and I have read like, I've watched lore videos about it. The sort of supernatural element is based on a German myth. I can't remember what the original myth is called, but one of the little tidbits is that the women like, the way it affects women is that they get these psychosomatic pregnancies where they think they're pregnant and, like, their bodies will sort of change in a way where it looks like they're pregnant, but then there's no baby. So it reminded me of that as well.
So, what it reminded me of was Ringu, which is the Japanese version of the ring, because in that it's very heavily implied that the ghost girl, the one that comes out of the TV,
Yeah.
it's very heavily implied that her father is actually some sort of like sea monster, and she was raised by her mother who was a psychic and a doctor who would put her mother up to all these kind of demonstrations and try to prove psychic abilities and stuff like that. And then she develops powers because of her parentage.
Yeah, and then she is out for revenge.
Yeah, so very similar.
Yeah, I will say I had a hard time getting a read on what Mackin was doing with this story. And in the beginning, he seems to be painting the doctor in a negative light. Like he says that thing and it's absolutely monstrous. And Clark is like, "Man, I don't know. I don't know." So then I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever happens next, they're going to be punished for what they've just done. Like the doctor for doing it, and then Clark for witnessing it and not stopping it. And that's not what happened. And so then I was like, "My guy, are you really painting this poor, abused, mistreated, taken advantage of girl as like a witch? Or the mother of a witch?" Though that was the other thing, it reminded me of The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. As it goes on, and you find out that she's essentially leaving this trail of destruction in her wake, which good for her.
We have now a woman who's half devil.
Yes, her name is Helen, and she sort of is the villain of the story. But as you're reading, you don't know that, like, we know that time has passed. We don't know how much. It was enough time for Helen to become an adult and start marrying men and destroying them. Although, and the only female victim of Helen, there's one victim, and it's like one of her first. Mary gives birth to Helen, Mary dies. The doctor has this devil child. Oopsies. And it was for me a constant, an incarnate horror. And after a few years, I felt I could bear it no more, and I sent Helen Vaughn away. So he has this devil child until she's 5 years old. And he knew it was a devil child. And to keep the child happy, I guess, or from not killing him, he would give it friends, which I'm assuming means children, to do whatever with. Kill, whatever. Can't stand it anymore. Sends Helen away to live with this family, which, like, this doctor guy never gets his just rewards. I gotta complain with Arthur Macken about that. He missed the gothic trope of the bad guy gets what's coming to him. He does this horrible thing to Mary. Mary has a devil child. He sacrifices a bunch of children to the devil child, then gets sick of the devil child, sends the devil child on her merry way to
Well,
wreak
someone
havoc
else's problem now.
and kill a boy in the woods, frighten a boy to death, make a boy go insane from seeing whatever she's doing in the woods.
Yeah, because he saw this is related to the idea that children are able to see things that adults no longer can. Because
Yeah.
this little boy also sees Pan.
Yes, he sees Pan and Helen in the woods, probably
And
canoodling. And now that's kind of indirect. A lot of her victims are indirect, where they see this horrible thing, they can't stand it, they go insane, they fall on hard times, they can't get over it, and then either they're frightened to death or they eventually take their own lives.
yeah, I can see how Lovecraft was a fan of this.
Yeah, it also, like, the way things are described sometimes where it's like, "Oh, it's too strange. You can't even describe it. You can't even fathom it. It was so dark and evil and oh my god." And it's like, I mean, you could try to describe it. You're not you're not convincing me here. Like, I might be
You
more
know,
scared.
Lovecraft did describe things.
Yes, he did definitely improve on that part of the formula.
He described things and then was like, you probably can't imagine this correctly, but you can try. But he did give us something.
Yeah, Arthur Macken really is, "Go girl, give us nothing." It was queer. That's all we get. Queer, 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 queer.
Yep. Interpret that how you will.
Rainbows and glitter, and also in this village, Helen makes friends with a girl named Rachel. And this is the only female victim of Helen, which is fascinating to me because in my head, and maybe again, as a queer person, maybe this is just me, but I was in my head, I was immediately like Carmilla, kind of Helen's looking for a companion, and obviously who she's gonna pick a girl because men can't be trusted. And she makes friends with this girl, convinces her to go off into the woods with her or whatever. But then this girl also cannot take whatever horrors are unleashed or that Helen brings forth, whatever she's doing. And so Rachel also dies. So that was just a thought that I had. That's my fanfic that Helen was just looking for a little love. But so basically after she wreaks havoc in this small town, she goes on to marry a kind of a well-to-do scholarly gentleman, ruins him, takes all his money, gets him embroiled is not the right word. They're living in a house where strange stuff happens. All the neighbors are like, "Nah, that's don't trust them." And eventually this culminates in a man dying, being found dead outside their house, and is later determined that he died of fright. There was no poison, there were no marks or whatever. His face was contorted.
See, this is also similar to The Ring.
Yes, and later another character goes to that house and describes this horrific experience of just feeling this awful dread and this physical feeling of terror. I thought was very compelling because I love a haunted house story. We only got a little bit of haunted house in this, but the way he described it, I liked.
Yeah, I guess going back to how we're also told the story. I mean, obviously the author is a man, so it's a man telling us the story anyway. But the
Mhm.
whole story is also told to us through exclusively male characters.
Yes.
Um, because the beginning is Clark and Raymond talking. Chapter 2, where we get the account of Helen as a child, is Clark reading his. He's got like a manuscript with this
Mm.
account in it because he's working on a book, and the book is about proof of the truth of the devil or something to that effect.
He's writing a book about why the devil is real, and here's all the proof about it.
Yeah, so again, it's Helen's story, but we're getting it through the eyes of Clark. And then when we find out about her marriage to this other man and ruining him, is because the husband is begging on the street and an old friend sees him and asks him, "How did you end up here?" So then he tells us what had happened.
Yes, and so in that sense of getting bits and pieces of the stories sort of out of order from different perspectives, like, that's the part of this story that I think was really well done and that I enjoyed, because I don't always enjoy that. Sometimes it feels, I don't know, arbitrary. That I enjoyed. Too many men, though. Too many men, too much dialogue, too many, like, the names, and it's just, like, none of them have any distinguishing features. None of them sound any different from each other.
Helen doesn't finish with her first husband, though.
No, so after this man is found dead in front of their house and nobody can press charges, there's no proof of anything, but the neighborhood and the police and everyone are like, "That's suspicious. I don't know about them." Basically, the husband becomes destitute because Helen takes all his money and leaves. Good for her. So the husband becomes a beggar on the street, and he's seen this horrible thing. So not only is he financially destitute, he's also spiritually, emotionally, mentally dealing with the incomprehensible horror that he's witnessed that he has no words for. And even Villers, who he tells his story to, he's like, "Oh, damn, I believe him. That's the look of a man who has seen something incomprehensible." A little interesting tidbit, which we find out later. So after Villers and Herbert have this conversation, and Villers is a successful school friend of Herbert, the guy who was married to Helen. And so, takes him in and like gives him a meal and gets the story out of him, sends him on his way with a little pocket change. I had a whole bunch of thoughts about that too, about how, man, you're this successful, like, rich guy with nothing better to do than go out and eat and drink every single day and just chit chat with whoever you pass on the street. That's like your hobby, it's all you do. And you can't like help your buddy out, let him
You know what?
stay.
I think this was a little bit later on when it was talking about this lord kind of aristocrat that also got involved with Holland, and I'm pretty sure that there's a comment made to the husband about this too. So, oh, well, what about your inheritance? You have all this land. Where this kind of I guess especially in the aristocracy, and we probably talked about this with The Man Who Laughs,
Mm,
where the land, the wealth is inherited, and they actually don't need to work even to maintain their wealth. Like they
yeah.
literally don't have to do anything, and they're set for life.
Yeah, that's true. It's the men who die in this story are all wealthy, like aristocracy, lords, well-to-do people. Like after the village, like she starts off small with, her first husband who is this a scholar, a respected person. He's got some inheritance and stuff like that. No titles or anything, and he doesn't end up dying immediately. He takes his own life shortly after meeting with Villers. But then after that, she just keeps going up and up and up. She takes a brief little vacay and somehow or other falls in with an artist who goes mad, but before he dies, very kindly makes a sketchbook of all the crazy things he saw and sends it to his friend. So she takes a little vacay, has a fling with an artist in Buenos Aires, comes back to England, and now she's a lady. She's got this nice house with gay curtains. Literally, they're described as gay curtains. I want to reiterate. I understand that's not what he meant, but it's funnier if you read it that way.
It well, also too, when I was looking for the different costumes for one of my Instagram posts, and
Mhm.
I was flipping through books from the 1920s, and it's all, gay costumes for your gay party and gay
Mhm.
festivities.
Yeah, it's just it makes it better.
They also used that word a lot.
They did. They did.
Mhm. And it's almost kind of, yeah, like you said, it's amusing that the meaning of it has changed so much in really a very short time.
Oh, yeah, because this story was written The Great God Pan was written in 1890. So it's only a little over a century, only a little over a century. But, like, in the span of human existence, that's a relatively short amount of time for the word
Yeah.
to have so completely gone through multiple lifetimes of meaning.
Yeah, and for the usage to change completely.
Yeah, it just goes to show that language is a living, breathing thing, for better or for worse. So Helen's moved up in life. She's got this nice house. She is the talk of the town. Everybody wants to be invited to her dinner parties. She has the best wine. It's over 1,000 years old.
Yes, because it is, uh, you know, wine made by,
The
I
great
guess,
god Pan.
it's like it's mythological,
It is.
and it is so good. It is unbelievably good.
For a while, things are fine, and she's also seen out about in society. She's having coffee there. She's at a dinner party here. Everybody's alive. Nobody is dying from terror or anything like that. Everything seems fine. But then, and now this honestly, this might make me sound like a bad person. My favorite part of this story was the part where all of the well-to-do aristocratic aristocratic men that have been having dinner at Helen's house start taking their own lives out of nowhere, and it
Very
becomes
mysterious.
it's very mysterious, and, it's first one of them goes, and everyone is shocked, there's he leaves no note, there's no evidence of any sort of scandal or hardship. He seemed perfectly like himself, and then another one, and then another one, and they're all doing it in the same way by hanging themselves in their own bedrooms, like short rope. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I was taking a lot of joy in that, but this chapter I think was the most intriguing. And I think it also sold the horror to me a little bit more than some of the other events. Like this to me, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was mysterious. I like the descriptions. Good chapter. Dark. Dark though. And there's also in this chapter there's a they he references Whitechapel, the Jack the Ripper. The author contrasts Jack the Ripper and those very violent, visceral, physical killings to this rash of suicides in opposite ends of London. I enjoyed that. I also thought that was a cool way to put it. They're putting together the mystery of who this woman in the house with the nice gay curtains is. And through various channels of writing to Mr. Clark with his memoir about why the devil is real, doing some snooping, we find out that the lady in the house with the gay curtains, gay, 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 is none other than Helen, my
Yeah,
hero.
she was going by a couple different names.
Yeah, she went by Mrs. Vaughn. She went by Mrs. Beaumont. One of these men, I believe it's Villers. Yes, it is. It's Villers. Who he's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to that lady's house. The other guy is like, are you crazy? You've seen what happens. You can't go into that house. But he's like, no, here's what we do. Me and my buddy Clark, Clark, the guy with the book about why the devil is real, that guy who was there when the devil was born, conceived, I guess. That guy.
Yeah, he has all the secrets.
He's described too as being somebody who is curious and interested in like occult things and things of that nature, but he tries very hard not to be, which I thought was really funny. Uh
Resistance is futile.
yes. He's like, "No. Here's what we're going to do. I was passing by this odd shop the other day, this not thrift stop, whatever, pawn shop. And you know what they and this shop of antiquities and oddities. And you know what they had in the window? A
Uh,
noose. After Villers is out and about, whatever, he finds this dusty shop in this weird little street with, a faded sign and the bricks are all dirty, very dingy place. He sees in the window something he's like, "Oh, I need that." But I had to steel myself. So he loiters outside for a little bit. He goes in and he's shaking a little bit, and the old man who runs the shop is looking at him like a weirdo as he wraps it up. And he's talking about how his business has been bad and there hasn't been a lot of profits and blah blah blah, and the whole street's down on his luck. Who? What did he pick up in that odd shop? It's a
what?
long coil of cord, hard and new, and at one end was a running noose. "It is the best hempen cord," said Villers, "just as it used to be made for the old trade," the man told me. "Not an inch of jute from end to end." Because a lot the suicides of the noblemen or the aristocracy people that were going to visit Helen, since they were all hangings, Villers is like, "I'm gonna go to Helen's house and I'm gonna say I'm gonna leave you in a room with this cord, for 15 minutes. And when I come back, if you're not dead, I'm gonna call a policeman." Bizarre. Absolutely. What kind of
Yeah.
logic? And there's also this absolutely comedic gold. So he's telling this to his friend, and his friend is like, "I can't stay here any longer. I can't bear this. Goodbye." Literally, the door shut, but in a moment it was open again, and Austin stood white and ghastly in the entrance. "I was forgetting that I too have something to tell." So like his friend is horrified. He's like, "I don't want any part of this." But then he slams back in. "Wait, I have a story. It's my turn for the exposition." But so basically, the artist that made all those nice drawings before he died, um, since he was in Buenos Aires, Austin writes the doctor to see if he can get any more details. And we find out it wasn't a fever or anything. It was an utter collapse of the whole system, probably caused by some severe shock. And we also find out that the only person he knew in Buenos Aires was not a very well regarded person, and her name was Mrs. Vaughn.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Which, yeah, I mean, we've been new. And so then the next chapter, and I was very excited because I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get some juicy stuff." But then it goes back to like there's an excerpt from the doctor's notes, or from a doctor's notes about witnessing Helen essentially uh we don't see the confrontation between Helen and Villers. We don't see how he convinces this badass lady with the trail bodies in her wake and the devil on her side to hang herself on her own bedpost. But he does that somehow.
That seems
And
to
so
be a bit of a an oversight in the description there.
yeah, so rather than seeing that, which would have been interesting, we get a witness's description of how she was shifting forms as she was dying. She was a woman, and then she was a man, and then she was an animal, and then she was lower than an animal. It was a pretty banger description, but I was like, come on.
Why would she do that?
I don't know. I don't know why she would do that. Yeah, once again, women get the short end of the stick narratively. So we get that description, and then
That's about it, isn't it?
we get Clark writing the tale of this to Raymond, the original doctor in the beginning, who did the lobotomy. So Clark still alive, Villers still alive, and
So basically, the people that got punished were a bunch of innocent bystanders who had nothing to do with the original crime in the first place.
essentially, yeah. So in that sense, the story wasn't very satisfying because I wanted Raymond and Clark to be punished.
They would have deserved it. They're the
They
ones who
would
started
have.
all this.
They did,
It's
and like
it's their fault
it's
that all
their
those people
fault.
died.
So I think, if this was gonna be like a proper gothic, a good, juicy, cathartic horror story, they should have met their ends somehow. I'm not saying Helen should have continued on her murder spree. I'm just saying, they shouldn't have gotten out unscathed.
Yeah, I don't think I can agree that this is the greatest horror story in the English language.
No, it's definitely not. Like, I found it enjoyable, and
Yeah.
I liked the descriptions. Well, when there were descriptions, I liked the descriptions.
When there were there.
Yeah. And it was like I would put this or I would describe this almost as like cozy horror, where it's not like scary, but it's creepy enough. I don't know. It took me away. So I did enjoy my time with it. But
I
oh,
I think it would make a good movie.
oh yeah, it would make a good movie. I agree.
However, the filmmakers would have to actually describe the things so that we can have a visual of it.
Yeah, that's true. I know, I do kind of want to. I want to maybe read more by Mackin because I'm intrigued enough to give him another shot. We'll see. Maybe he'll fit in somewhere else down the line.
Yeah, we've actually only got a couple episodes left for the year.
I know that's crazy. I don't even want to think about how it's almost November, and then it's almost December, and then it's almost 2026. I've got a to-do list the size of my leg, and I don't have very long legs, but it's big enough. Anyways, that's not related to this. Well, should we call it a day? Do we have a question?
So I have a question. If you could assign any work of fiction, English or not, could be literature, it could be a film, as the greatest horror in the world,
That's a
it
good
could.
question.
And you know what? You don't need a good reason. The reason could just be because I like it the best. But if you want to write a whole dissertation, by all means, go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I think honestly, the only thing I've watched or read that actually like disturbed me in a way that like I felt it in my body where I was a little like I almost turned it off is a movie called The Descent.
I've heard about that one.
Yes, it is the only horror movie, well, not counting the time when I was a child and my cousin and I decided to watch a bunch of horror movies one summer and it traumatized me. Not counting that. If you're going to watch that movie though, there's a lot of gore.
Well, I
So,
wasn't gonna watch it.
yeah, there's like gore and body horror, stuff like that.
Not for me.
I think though my most enjoyable horror experience, ooh, honestly, I might go I don't even know. That's such a hard question. What's yours?
I might have to go with the one that's had the most influence on my ideas. Not necessarily
Mm,
because it's the best story in the world, but I'm gonna have to go with Ringu.
yeah, I respect it. I respect it.
The Japanese film, not the novel. The novel and the film are very different. I Okay, you know how we talked about I never DNF books? I DNF'd Ringu, the novel.
Oh, I remember you telling me about
because
that.
I was like, "This is nothing like the movie." It was making me so mad.
I mean, listen, as someone who DNFs books all the time, I respect it.
The changes they made for the film were the correct choices, starting with making the main character a woman instead of a man. Got rid of a lot of the crudeness.
Oh, you know what? My favorite, my most enjoyed horror is The Haunting of Hill House. All of it. The original, the book by Shirley Jackson. There's a movie from the early 2000s that's really cheesy and I love it. And the Netflix show. All of it. I love that story so much. Every iteration.
All right.
Love a haunted house story. Let us know in the comments what your top horror pick is. Movie, book, doesn't matter. And I guess we will see you next time. Well, we won't see you. You
We'll be
will listen
back.
to us. We'll be back for your eardrums with a different story next time. All right, goodbye, internet.
Bye.
Oh, don't forget like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. I forgot to put it at the beginning again.
We really are gonna need a script.